So just a bit of context again. So we learnt in the Pasuk in Chumash from the Medrash that it says that Hashem saw everything that He created and it was Tov Ma'od. Tov is the Yetzer Tov and Ma'od is the Yetzer Hara. And we're trying to see how the driving force in ourselves for something really this worldly can make us exceptionally good in our Avodas Hashem. And at the moment, we exploring how the drive for money, which we would see as a base drive, as a Yetzer Hara drive, can make a person into, take a good servant of Hashem and make them into an exceptional servant of Hashem. Most of what I know on this topic, I learned from this Yetzer Hara. I just expanded it out to a desire for honor, competitiveness, just because they work in a similar way often. But this was my learning ground that I learned it also. Most of it's brought from here. If you say, oh, mind, I want to expand on it for a little bit longer than the others, just because I think my personal experience in it will shed light on this Yetzer Hara, but also it'll help you who don't have this as your main drive, who have others to work it through. So last week we saw together a few sources, there are many, many, many more, that a person's commitment to Torah learning is a driving force in Hashem's determinant of their financial position. The Pasuk says, B'tel ha'chochma, b'tel ha'kesef. You're in the shadow of wisdom, you're in the shadow of money. It makes sense that they go together, because to learn you need time. And to have time, you need financial resources at your disposal so that you don't have to spend your time looking for those financial resources. That's why Shlomo Melech, Rabbi Yonah says, asked for chokhmah. He could have asked for money, he could have asked for property, he could have asked for anything he wanted. But he knew if he asked for chokhmah, everything was included in that, because Hashem would have to provide him with the lifestyle and the resources to allow him time to invest in chokhmah. That's how it works. It's a svara. It's not magic. It's not like woo-woo stuff. And we learned together the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, which for me I feel is a good middle ground starting point of this, and that is that it says, Kol makabel alav ol Torah mavin memenu ol malchus ol derech eretz. When you invest your time in learning Torah, Hashem removes from you the time that you have to invest in work. Any time which you fix for learning, Hashem deducts from the time that you have to invest in your livelihood. This is not a recipe to become wealthy, but it's a recipe for productivity. It means that your time at the office will be spent well. If you gave 2 hours of morning learning to your Seder, your parnasa will not be affected. It'll just take 2 hours less to do the same job at work. And through my life, I've seen that many, many times. And I can give you tons of examples. But the most important thing is this, that when you have this embedded in you, so for me, any experience where I feel like Hashem is wasting my time, my immediate knee-jerk is, look at your learning. What's going on in your commitment to? Because the marriage has been made. That productivity is attached to my commitment to my Sedar. I'm not only saying learning, but my commitment to my Avodas Hashem times. And in that way, I just want to say, I became very, very careful at keeping my Sedarim. I wanted to learn, and I wanted to have knowledge, and I wanted to know the Torah, to know what to do a lot. But to be fastidious about it, to make it that extra very good, it was actually the productivity in my business which really rounded it all off and made me look like I was a machine. But I wasn't actually a machine. I was just had ulterior motives which made my behavior look a little bit exceptional. And that for me is the very good coming out. Business making your service to Hashem very good. But it's also the most beautiful thing. Now I'm going to show you a few other areas, but for me this is one of them where we're not Nevi'im. Hashem doesn't speak to us with his voice, and if he does, There's a place in Sandhurst which I suggest that you go to if he's speaking to you, But he screams at you in the business. Screams. When your day gets wasted, he's taking you by the ear and he's saying, Justin, what are you doing with your life, man? But the reflection comes because I've made the connection. I believe in that connection. I deeply believe in his Torah. I believe in his Mishnayos. And I know that these are the driving forces of my business life. And so business becomes exceptionally meaningful. And it's an integral part in the petrol of my service to Hashem. I want to share with you, maybe before I share with you the story, I will. It's a story I've been wanting to tell you for a long time. I told you I was going to tell you 2 stories. I only got to tell you one. This is another one of them. But a person, just so that I think a lot of this needs, it's a novel way of seeing the world. It's not the normal way. Most people see the world that Yetzer Haras have to be killed and destroyed. And this is saying, no, embrace that drive. It's good for you. It's actually going to do something special for you. I had 2 interesting calls this week. I'll share with you one of them. If you have time, I'll share with you the other at the end. But I had a guy from Israel call me, like an old friend, acquaintance, about 10 years ago. He's been living in Israel. He phoned me, and he was raising money for his kollel. So I said to him, well, what's special about your kollel, He says, we've got the best Avreichim. Every kollel says that, the very special group of guys, and they just work together unbelievably well. We learn Torah, mamish, be'iyun the whole day, 2 halacha. It's like just something very, very special. So, okay, no, that sounds like every other kollel, they haven't told me something that's really piqued my interest. But then he did say something which did pique my interest. And it was as follows. I said to him, explain, let's go through the economics. How much does each Avreich get? How many Avreichim are there? We go through. So he tells me how much each Avreich gets, which is actually, for an Avreich, a lot of money, well below the poverty line. I don't know how you survive on that amount of money, but that's about. And then he says, and then on top of that, there's an extra about 15% that we give for Shmiras Sodorim. So I don't know if you guys know what that means. Shmiras Sodorim means keeping your Seder, which means you arrive on time and you don't leave before the end. So there was 2 thoughts that went through my head. Yesterday, the thought that went through my head was, imagine what brilliant Avreichim these are. How much they love learning. That you have to pay them extra to come on time and not to leave early. Imagine at work, you tell a guy, here's your salary, we'll give you a little bit of bonus if you don't arrive after 8 o'clock. You don't understand? It's just 5 o'clock if he doesn't come. That's just the way it works. Just out, but you come late, you leave early, out, you find another job. You're not interested in this place. There's top Avrech. And he's like, this brilliant kollel, but you must give him a little bit extra to come on time. Anyway, so I was just chuckling to myself. I wasn't laughing. I know they do that. Now, I've been in that place. It's not easy to be an Avreich to keep it going, and you do lose momentum. But when I was driving here, I was thinking, we think that it's only the working world that has to use a little bit of the Yetzer Hara to make you an excellent Oved Hashem. Even in kollel, they do it. They're also using money to make the guy keep his Seder brilliantly. It's the same thing, exactly the same. In fact, they're all coming there only for the money. Your 2 hours of learning, and I remember when I was went to have dinner with my Maggid Shir, and I told him that we have a kollel in Santon Shul of all working guys. So he said to me, well, who does the fundraising for? He said, no, there's no fundraising. They come. It wasn't even, at first it was the question was weird, how much, why would it cost money to run a kollel, to go get guys to go learn? So they said, no, they actually come, they learn for 2 hours a day and then they go to work. So, but no, they don't get paid. It was whoa, that's special. That's very unique. There's actually 2 hours of a working guy's day where he learns because he wants to learn. actually because he wants to learn Torah and he's not going to make anything financial from it. What maybe keeps him careful about it and makes him vested in it and rigid about it is that he knows that the blessing for his business is going to come from those 2 hours. There's a connection there, but it's much more indirect than a person learning in Kollel or Shmira Sodorim. So it just made me feel like just to lighten the load a bit. This is not an unconventional way of serving God. And the whole world has embraced the fact that the need for money and the drive for money can significantly uplift and improve a person's commitment to learning, fixed times that you're attached to learning. It's a worldwide phenomenon. Anyway, a few years ago, I was enjoying a beautiful holiday in the game reserve with my family. My brother, my sister, my parents, my whole family. And we were a week into the holiday. We were at the Protea Hotel at the Kruger Gate. And I got a call from one of the senior guys in my office. He lives in America. We barely ever chat. And I got a call from him. I took it because we really don't chat a lot. And I remember where I was on one of those, if you've been there, but like one of those little like patios, it's like a whatever. I was just finished davening. And he says, Rov, we've got a problem. So I said, okay, what's the problem? And he explained to me what had just happened. And we had a big problem. A big problem. It was complicated, the transaction. I had no idea about the transaction. I have a department of guys who ran this account. And they'd set up the whole transaction. And basically what had happened was we usually deal with the US entity, but this transaction, all the equipment was being bought by the Qatari subsidiary of this company. Okay? So the way they'd agreed for the transaction to work was we would buy the goods from the USA entity, import them into Qatar, sell them to their Qatari entity. The Qatari entity would pay us, and then we would pay them, and everything would work out beautifully. And manager phones me and says, Rov, we've got a problem. Says, what's the problem? We imported the goods, no problem. We delivered the goods to the company in Qatar, no problem. The subsidiary in Qatar paid our agent in Qatar, no problem. The money's stuck with the Qatari agent. We've got to get that money to the US entity or we're done. So I phoned my partner and I said to him, we've got a problem. So he was actually unbelievable. He always is unbelievable in these things. But needless to say, my holiday was ruined, like ruined. And I got on the phone to this Qatari partner of ours I'd never spoken to before and tried to understand what's going on. And they're telling me these things at their banks and there's foreign exchange controls and they didn't know before. They never had problems. They can't get the money out. There's nothing that they can do. And I haven't been sleeping at night. All I'm thinking about is this. And eventually, I don't want to bore you with the whole story, but we had to hire, we have a legal team that work for us around the world, and they recommended this guy who deals with Qataris, who's actually an Egyptian lawyer who lives half in Egypt and half in Qatar. Now, you know what I'm saying? I was like on the Zooms there, we were like, no, I'm joking, I did keep my army on, but it's like it was a hell of an uncomfortable situation. And this guy just gave me, even the lawyer gave me the creeps, But anyway, he flew to Qatar for us. He said to me, Justin, I'm going to go and I'll meet these guys and then I'll come back. So he went to meet them and he phones me straight after the meeting and he says, Justin, you've never been there, huh? He says, Justin, they don't even have a business. It's like a little room on the side of customs at the port. It's like they don't have furniture in the office. So then he's giving me like musa about like how I run my business and how can I take it, anyway, and that didn't help me to tell my partners that these oaks, anyway. He said to me, Justin, I think I need you to come to Qatar. It'll help. Maybe you'll shake them up. I don't know how we're going to get the money out of them. So I said, look, it's important to me to get this money back, but there's things that are more important to me, and I ain't coming to Qatar. So you're on your own, and that's the way it's going to run. This ordeal went on for about 4 months. In November, eventually, we managed to broker a deal. This lawyer managed to broker a deal where they would keep 15% or something of the money, and they'd release the rest. And I was nervous. He said, if you get it in writing, a new legal contract, that you'll pay them off 15% of the money, they have to pay that 85. You could go to court in Qatar. We could actually go to court and get the money from them. It was it was a loss for us, but it was a much less loss than the whole amount. And we decided, I can't remember exactly the percentage, it was a big amount of money. And eventually we got the legal contract signed up. And in, I think it was November, they paid us the balance, excluding their nice fee for handling the cash. And our legal fees, which we had to pay. And in that process, for most of the process, you couldn't talk to me. I was deranged, mad at this guy. I phoned my brother a few hundred times, I'm sure, in the process to tell him about what was going on and where we were at and what was happening with it and how idiots we were and how could we have done this, just so, such poor controls and whatever. And I was cross with my team, but I wasn't, because it was also my responsibility. It was an ordeal. And after 4 months, I had one phone call with my brother, and he said to me, Justin, this brother, I only have one, said to me, Justin, why are you always shouting about the stick? Someone's giving you the clap. Maybe you have to look a little bit beyond the Qatari agent. And let me tell you, I wanted to give my brother a bit of a stick that day. Hey? I wanted to just take the stick and just whack him and tell him to shut up. But it hit me quite hard because I'd been so consumed in the actual sorrow itself that I hadn't had a time to actually think and breathe. And of course, we'd fixed up that department. The department now runs very differently, and we have controls in place that won't happen again. That's easy. That's just business. That's just being responsible. But after that, I started to think, what's going on? Because Hashem got my attention. He knew, he grabbed me by the ear, and he got my attention. He got my attention for 4 long, grueling months. So he's screaming at me. He is screaming at me. What's he saying? And I always found in these things that if you're brave, the message is very simple. Hashem speaks to you a language you can understand. He's not trying to speak to you in this convoluted, difficult, cryptic messages. He's speaking to you straight in the way that you understand. And there was 2 things that really struck me quite deeply. The first was this, that if we lost this money, we would have lost maybe half the year's profits. So I would have worked for 6 months for nothing. Why would you do that to me, Hashem? Why would you do that to me? Make me work for nothing. And the other thought that went through my mind was this. I've spent 4 months, from July until November, and I've barely looked at the business. All I've been dealing with is getting this money back from Qatar. And the business was fine. It was operating well. Actually didn't need me so much. And then it hit me. Hashem was saying to me, Justin, you are wasting your time. You're spending way too much time in the office. It doesn't need you. I'll get you consumed inside rubbish, and the business will function well. It does not need as much time as you're giving to this business. And all the time that you gave to it in the first 6 months, I'm prepared to throw that all away because it's worthless to me. It's too much. The business doesn't need you that much. And that was loud and clear. So then I was like, my yeshiva years came through, and I thought, okay, then I should just give more time to learning. But to be honest, it would be very, very hard for me to give it much more time to learning. I was at my max. I couldn't do more. I know by the time I was finished my time that I'd allocated, my brain was fried and I was done. So I could pretend that I was going to go put in a few more hours. It would be very unproductive. But and that was hard for me because I kept going back to things of what Hashem wants me to learn more, but I just don't know. I can't understand why. Like it just doesn't. Okay, I can work in it and try and get into it more, but it's not easy for me. And then I had a point which actually was a big point of growth for me in my own service to Hashem, was that I realized that what I do love and have endless energy for is actually doing communal work. Helping to fund organizations, guide organizations, being involved with the people who are leading it, coming up with ideas with them how to grow and develop their things, helping the odd person who needs personal help and guidance and advice from me. I've got all the time in the world. I enjoy that. It energizes me, invigorates me. I could go on and on and on doing that. And actually, if I want to grow my contribution to the community, I have to give time to that. You can't, things only grow when you give them time. Your knowledge of Torah only grows when you give it time. Your business only grows when you give it time. You have to give things space and time. And if I want to make a contribution to the community, I've got to give it time. So actually what I'm going to do is, I hear you, Hashem, I'm going to allocate time to building the community. And I decided then that I used to have Tuesday mornings, I used to arrive at work late because I used to go to the school to help with schoolwork. That's what I did for many, many years. But I decided that I was going to dedicate Fridays to the community. That's it. So I'd work 4 days a week. 5th day would be completely for communal work. And it transformed my life. Everything that I enjoy today about being involved in the community, about funding things, doing things, none of that could have been possible unless I'd actually given a great chunk of time to that. My business was not affected at all from it. And I've had the most rewarding, fulfilling years since then on those Fridays. My dad calls it Mitzvah Friday. He always says to me, Justy, how was Mitzvah Friday today? I say, yeah, today good. Some days are better than others, Some days are a bit dry. Some days are exciting. But it's my day for Hashem. And I would never have made that time if it wasn't for me having a connection between being productive at work and time allocated for Avodas Hashem. I would never have heard Hashem screaming to me. None of these things. My life would have been just this flat, hardship for nothing world. But I have a deep world, and my connection to Hashem is deepened, and He speaks to me and talks to me through these things in the business. This is one of the aspects. But the productivity at work, for me, whenever that goes well or it's wasted, it's always Hashem speaking to me about my allocation of time, my use of time in my life, and how I'm actually utilizing that properly. So it might be a Yetzer Hara. It might be a drive for money that's moving that behavior. But first of all, it makes you very, very good. But it's also actually, I think, for you guys, just to give you the guts, it's actually a profound thing that you could actually believe in the Torah, believe in the Mishnah so much that it actually runs your life and that it allows you to have a relationship with Hashem where He actually talks to you and speaks to you and communicates with you in your business activities regarding your service to Him. It's a deep world. It's not a shallow Yetzer Hara, money-driven world. It's a world which opens a real depth of relationship to Hashem. All of these drives, not only the drive for money does that, but for me, I have a lot of experience in sharing with you stories where my basic drive for financial success opened up a whole world of communication and connection to Hashem, and tov me'odness, very goodness, in different areas of service to Hashem. So hopefully we'll carry on next week a little bit more in this area.